Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of Talmbout Wrestling, right here on the Black Phoenix Network. I am your host, the untouchable J.R. Atkins, and this is your primary destination for wrestling conversation. It's me. It's me. It's that. Okay, it doesn't really work when I do it there. But hey, welcome back to another edition of Talmbout Wrestling. The last edition of Talmbout Wrestling for the month of October, which means very little. And the last one before my birthday. My birthday is coming up this Monday, the 27th. So if you have any, if you're watching this and you're so inclined to do to you know want to do anything for me, I'll drop a Cash App link or something. You know what I'm saying? Like or the QR thing. But that's neither here nor there. Welcome back. It's been another amazing week in wrestling. This week, obviously, we are going to cover WrestleDream, which happened last week, and the fallout from WrestleDream on AEW Dynamite. I've seen the Collision spoilers, but I won't do that. Collision comes on tonight. We're going to stay spoiler free for now. But all that notwithstanding, welcome back to another beautiful Saturday morning. It actually is Saturday morning this time. I know normally I do these on Friday nights, but it's actually Saturday morning this time. So beautiful day, right? First and foremost, I want to say thank you if you're tuning in today. If you tuned in last week, if you tuned in at any point in time, if you're here seeing this, thank you for tuning in. Also, thank you for checking out my other content here on the Black Phoenix Network. So far, right now, it's just my What's Up Wednesday articles every Wednesday afternoon. Manifesto Monday still exists if you want to check through the archives. That's there as well. I will be doing those over as an actual podcast. I have to figure out some stuff on how that's going to be listed, but it will be there. So thanks for that. If you checked out any of that, and if you haven't, you still can go. Just again, check out. Go subscribe. Subscribe to the network. Subscribe to the Black Phoenix Network. You'll get all my content that I've done thus far, and anything that I do going forward. Eventually, once we get this up, we're gonna really increase the amount of content that I do and all those types of things. So thanks for that. Also want to address last week, because last week I know we went up very late. I almost want to say we probably were in the middle of the pre-show by the time that the episode was finally uploaded. And I want to say, I would say it's not my fault, but it is my fault because nobody else works on the show but me, right? But what had happened? So you remember last week where I said, hey, we're upgrading things, trying some new stuff out, and I just discovered I can play with some of these settings. So what happens if I do this in 4K, 60 frames per second? We're going up to the max. Well, what that does is create a very big file that takes a very long time to do anything. So this week, toning it down a bit. May still take a while because I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it's still going to be a huge freaking file. But we're going down a little to 1080p, 60 frames per second. And if this doesn't work, then we're just going to go back to the 720 that we were doing before, because, time is of the essence. Especially if I don't do it on a Friday night. If I'm doing it Saturday morning, I want to get this up by noon like I try to do with these, then I have to change what I'm doing. So we're going back down to 1080p. I'm still pretty clear. Still pretty clear. Look at me. Look at it. All right. Still pretty clear. Though I don't think there was an issue to begin with, but neither here nor there. Also, my lights may go out at some point, but there's enough light in the room that things will be fine. I just want to give all the precursors and all the heads up before we get into the show, because I don't want to, I don't want no smoke, as they say. So that all being said, thank you for tuning in again. First and foremost, like I said, we're going to start doing last week. I mentioned this, that we're going to start doing this. We're going to do the t-shirt of the week. Now, this week's a little different, so let me sit back a little bit so you can see what I'm working with. As you see, baseball tee length, you know what I'm saying? With the pink and so what this isn't a wrestling tee, obviously enough. Um, this is a custom, somewhat design. Actually, it's very kind of custom-ish design. I'll give a little backstory real quick. So, obviously, I'm in Memphis. The football team here is the Memphis Redbirds. Not football, baseball team. AAA baseball team. Memphis Redbirds was the affiliate, obviously, of the Cardinals. So, um, every year they do kind of like a crossover jersey with the Memphis Grizzlies, and it's like it'll be kind of a hybrid mashing of the jersey styles or logo styles or something like that. So this particular year, not this year, but the year that I got this shirt, which was like I think 2016, which show you how long ago that was, 10 years ago. They did it looked like this basically. This is the typical logo. Obviously, it looks like the Cardinals logo, but it was in the Grizzly colors. And I wanted that, but the jersey, you had to go to the game to get the jersey, and then I didn't go, and obviously you couldn't buy it anywhere. So I wanted something with that logo. So I talked to a friend of mine who runs Rebel Czar, a clothing line here in Memphis. Shout out Heather, Rebel Czar. So, yo, hook me up. Can you hook this up? So she hooked it up as a baseball tee, which kind of accomplishes the same thing, right? And I don't know if she came up with it or if I came up with it, but somewhere in there we said, yo, let's do a breast cancer one as well. And so, yeah, this. So the thing with the idea, obviously, is that it has the stand up again, the Redbirds, but the Grizzly, but the Grizzlies number style, and of course we threw it in pink, representing breast cancer research. Obviously, huge supporter, representing pink. And the month's almost over, and I said, you know what? Let me throw that on. So, like I said, it's not always going to be a wrestling tee. Sometimes it's going to be something else. And if I had really focused on this back in the day, what I would have done is gotten those WWE when they were doing the breast cancer research shirts. Every year they would have something. They would take either regular shirts and like make pink versions of them for October when they were doing the Susan G Coleman partnership. They were doing those shirts. They don't do that anymore. But those years were. Now they don't do a lot of stuff anymore because now it's all about a money grab. That's neither here nor there. So, shout out. But maybe next year. Maybe next year. Maybe next year. Every episode in October, I will have something like that on. I think that'll actually be a better way to go. So this doubles as like the final in October and the quote unquote birthday episode. So go figure. Next year is going to be like a Halloween episode. That's going to be dope. Maybe I'll do a costume or something. Or I'll put on one of these masks. I got masks for Halloween. I don't have the rest of the stuff. I could do Penta for Halloween. Or do Rey Mysterio. Probably can't see that because it's over the thing. Yeah, next year I'm just going to come on. The greatest mask of all time. This was actually purchased in Mexico. All right. All that being said, let's get into it, man. Let's talk about it in my Trick Willie voice. Speaking of Trick Willie, tonight apparently, I just realized this like an hour or so ago. Show you how much I keep up with it. Apparently tonight is Halloween Havoc, um, which will I guess be showing on Peacock. I don't think those are going to be on ESPN. I think they're still on Peacock. So, um, I I would say I don't see it. I'm not gonna watch it. I hadn't watched the NXT anything in who knows how long, and I won't be watching tonight, especially because tonight is the big versus No Limit versus Cash Money versus, and I'm not. I will say I'm not missing that. I might because it's also my cousin's birthday. Shout out, cuz. Um, and I depend on what he decides to do. Depends on what he decides to get back at me and tell us what he wants to do. Maybe we'll miss it. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure I'll catch it somewhere. But all that notwithstanding, um, the NXT shows tonight, I'm not really. I looked at it. It's Halloween Havoc. Blah. Um, but that's not why we're here. I mean, we ain't talking WWE. We could, but we won't. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll do something. I feel like I should be slightly unbiased, but I don't. I don't. Like I said before, this company makes it harder and harder to support it. So go figure. Um, but instead, we are going to cover AEW, WrestleDream, and Dynamite. First and foremost, I will say WrestleDream. Sometimes with AEW, the shows are always like the same length, right? I think what got proven today or last week was these early start times makes the show um feel not as long as we all know it is. They really need to probably think about, you know, I know they do it when it's somewhere else, when it's like a Canada or when it's, I mean, they did it with All In as well, but I really think they ought to think about, and I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still, once you do that, it becomes an all day experience, but it hits different when it's in the daytime than it is at night. I'm not going to lie to you. I fell asleep twice watching this show because it was at the regular time, right? I fell asleep during the Kyle Fletcher match, which, sidebar, no shade to Kyle Fletcher, and I don't think it has anything to do with him. But for whatever reason, I always fall asleep on Kyle Fletcher matches. It never fails. It literally, like the last 2 or 3 shows that I watched at home, I fell asleep on the Kyle Fletcher show, on the Kyle Fletcher match. So I had to go back and watch it after the fact. But also, I fell asleep in the main, not the main event. And I fell asleep in the middle of Joe versus Hangman, and I woke up maybe more in the middle of Darby versus Mox, and that sucked. Um, so I had to go back and watch it again. I had to go back and watch the whole thing once I woke up, which kept me up even longer than I would have normally because I had to see the end of the show. So really, just I would hope that in the future we think more to do these afternoon shows. Um, you know, when it's best possible, because just it's just a struggle. It's just a struggle sometimes to get through. So hopefully they keep that in mind. But nonetheless, I did watch all the show. Just had to watch it in some pieces. So we're gonna cover everything. It was it felt, sometimes those long shows feel long, sometimes they don't. And I think the time that it comes on is actually what makes the difference. The later it goes, the longer it feels. If it's ending at like 8, 9 o'clock, it doesn't feel as bad as if it's ending at damn near midnight or midnight if you're on the East Coast. So, um, just something for them to think about. Just something for them to think about. And this is another one of those times where I'm going to cover the pre-show because, and I said last time that I wasn't going to do results on the pre-show. I mean, predictions on the pre-show, and I did this time, which makes sense. And even though I did, I was very wrong. I was very wrong. The first like 5 matches of the night, I got completely wrong just about. So we'll continue. Let's go ahead. Let's just get into it. All right. So the show opened up with the Death Riders versus the Conglomeration. Death Riders get the pin, which I figured actually. And if you remember last week, I said it's hard to bet against the Death Riders, but I went with them going with like a 2-2 heel versus faces victories in this show. Um, so I picked the Conglomeration, but like I said, it's hard to bet against the Death Riders, and I shouldn't have because they won. One thing that stood out of this match, I took notes up until the Kyle Fletcher match. Obviously, when I fell asleep, um, was just some of the fashion of the first few matches. Because I said I wanted to do those kind of podcasts, but I didn't stay up long enough to do it. So go figure. But Pac is back to Trunks. But as I'm looking at it, I'm like, something looks very different though about the Trunks. I can't put my finger on what it is. I think he went without knee pads and maybe a taller boot. I think it's what, or he went with like a boot with kind of like a sock coming out over it, out of it. I think that was the difference. And then just the hair makes a difference too. Uh, as he's not flying around the way that he used to, the hair doesn't. Because the thing with him flying around like he used to, his hair would fly with him basically. So not having the hair, but him also not flying around, kind of is an interesting dynamic. It's just again, it's something that's taking some getting used to. I think maybe he's even trying to find what that looks like for him. But because it seems like he's been working with a couple of different looks now. I guess trying to figure out what Death Rider version of Pop with the short hair and all of this actually looks like. And I'm wondering, did he have to change his style because of the injury, or has he done it because it fits more the Death Riders, uh, vibe or whatever? So did get that one wrong, but the Death Riders did get the win. Also, there was this. I didn't see this. I think because I think I tuned in a little late, or I had to refresh or something. Something weird happened where I didn't see this. But apparently, there's this new conglomeration entrance. It's not even apparently. I think this is where they debuted it, where they have like this 90s sitcom theme and video package, which is hilarious. Hilarious. I love it. Um, and it even has Roddy in there as like reluctantly part of the conglomeration, I guess. Which is it's great. It's great, and I don't know what that is. I don't know where that's going, but I love the dynamic. It's hilarious. Roddy Strong's been in some very interesting like positions comedically because for as ridiculous as he was with the Undisputed Kingdom and where he started yelling and the neck strong and all of that, as ridiculous as all that was, this is almost like now playing the straight person to the ridiculousness of the conglomeration, and it's like night and day. That's hilarious. So Roddy's very interesting in AEW, and then he goes in the ring and he's a machine. So shout out. Next up, we had Eddie Kingston and Hook, of course, beating Cole Carter and Griff Garrison. Griff Garrison from the frat house. I called that one. Like I said, it was going to be a squash just for them to start getting some tag team wins. So knew that was going to happen. Next up, we had Willow Nightingale and Harley defeating Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. I think I got this one wrong too, because I think I went with the heels here. I think this was one of the. I don't know. Now that I'm looking at this, it doesn't make sense. No, I think I went with Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford to get the win. Actually, I believe. So my heel wins would have been the conglomeration and no, actually not. Yeah, no, I don't know. I actually don't remember. I will have to watch my own show. But I think I was going with Jet Speed pending FTR. So maybe I did go with the Death Riders beating the conglomeration. Maybe I did get that one right. If you watched last week, remind me what my picks were. That's sad. That's sad because I made them on the spot. I didn't make them written down or anything like that. I made them on the spot, so I don't remember. But nonetheless, Willow and Harley defeated Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford. Um, good match, as they tend to be. Willow and Harley had this matching pink and blue gear that was kind of dope. Um, Harley is a very interesting character because it's not even a matter of allegiances. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to be friends with everybody. Like she's teaming with Willow, right? She's friends with Stat, who has an issue with Willow, and Willow has an issue with Stat. Stat one, so there's that. And then there's the whole Mercedes of it all. And now Mercedes and Willow, Mercedes and Stat have a match coming up at Full Gear. So all that's kind of interesting. All that is really interesting. I'm not really sure where something eventually will break with Harley, and one of these things is going to uh, go in one direction or the other. So that's very interesting to see where that's going to go. Um, and the main event of the pre-show, and this gets very interesting. Main event of the pre-show with 5 minutes left in the show, in the pre-show, was FTR versus Jet Speed. You heard me right. 5 minutes left in the pre-show. They were making entrances. So the match starts, and then the pre-show goes off. And then the main show starts. The pyro goes off while the match is happening in the ring, and as the pyro's going off in the arena, they're hitting like one of those high spot runs in the match as the show comes on. That was masterful. And you can't tell me it absolutely was intentional. Like I've seen people online kind of be like, "Oh, they're idiots. They don't know how to time a show." And that, so you don't think that was intentional? You idiots. You idiots. Sometimes people on the internet, wrestling fans on the idiots, especially like the WWE stands or WWE drones, as we call them, idiots. Um, that was absolutely intentional. But um, fire match, as we would absolutely knew it would be. FTR very rarely misses. One of the few misses was like with the Lucha Brothers, they couldn't really get a good groove going for some reason, and you would think they would. But everybody else, it seems to be like they nail it. So they get the win over Jet Speed. After, of course, some shenanigans from Stoke. But this has to be one of the first times that a match has gone from main event in the pre-show to opening up the main pay-per-view. And I looked at it like that's a great way to sneak this match on the main show. Normally what kind of happens, and I don't even know if they've done this on like the pre-shows. I guess they have here and there. But normally the most I've seen them do is like they'll do the entrances on a pre-show or online or something like that to save a little bit of time on the show. This is actually like we I wonder how it was like listed internally. How did they intend to do that? Because again, it essentially opened the show without officially opening the show, and got on the pay-per-view without actually getting on pay-per-view. That was very, again, I think it was genius. And again, it was a great match to open the show with. And what they did next actually proves to me that this was intentional, because I don't think the match that actually quote unquote opened the show, would have actually opened the show otherwise, knowing how they like to open shows. So the match after that opened the show was Jamie Hayter versus Tekla. Now, I said before, like I feel like this could have been like a Dynamite match or a Collision main event, because their feud has been significant. But this one-on-one match is kind of like, it's odd, but okay, you know. Um, and I picked Tekla to win, and Jamie Hayter won because again, everything after this I think I got right, but that I missed. I lost. I didn't do it. Again, another good match between Jamie Hayter and Tekla. Uh, Actually, very big. That's like Tekla's first loss in AEW, if I'm not mistaken. So huge, huge win for Jamie Hayter going into what coming up. Actually, a huge week for her now that I think about it, but we'll mention that when we get to Dynamite. Uh, Next up, we had the 500K tag team match, Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks. So, interesting thing here. So the Bucks come out to this entrance where like it's like a bank statement, basically reading off all the purchases that they made and stating that they had like $32 in their bank account now. It's like insufficient funds, insufficient funds, insufficient funds. Hilarious. And so they come out in this gear, and it has the tassels. And at first, I'm like, oh snap, the tassels are back, because you kind of feel like once the tassels come back, then they're really in their Young Bucks bag. So it's like, okay, cool. They bring in the tassels back, but then as I looked online, I saw somebody mention it, and it made me look again. I'm like, oh wait, is that recycled gear? Is that something they've already worn before? And then it clicked. It's like, oh, because they're broke. They can't afford new gear because they're broke. So they have to wear this old gear. And it had to be very old because it's a different era of the books, right? It's the tassels book. They hadn't worn tassels in ages. So it had to be very old gear for them to for it to stick. Because anything else looks fairly normal. Like there had to be something that signified that it was old, which was the tassels. You actually need to know a little bit of AEW lore to have caught that. That's one of those things that I mentioned why I want to do the video about the gear of these shows, because those types of things happen and they tell a bit of a story. And that absolutely was just one of those little details that goes along with the 30 something dollars in their bank account. So, hilarious. Again, saying great match for AEW pay per views feels redundant, so I'm gonna stop saying that. But Jurassic Express gets the win. Don Callis' family tries to attack them after that. The Bucks are walking away. They're kind of looking like they're conflicted. Bucks walk away. Kenny Omega comes out. It's the save. Everything is everything. Happy day. Luchasaurus and Jack Perry walk away with 500K. The Bucks are still broke. Next up, we had a Tornado Trios match with the Hurt Syndicate versus the Demand. And this match was also made into a number one contender match for the Trios titles. And the Hurt Syndicate wins, which I figured they would. Looking at the I think I got that right. Yeah, because the Demand won the tag match before. Yeah. So I figured in sometimes wrestling becomes predictable because they're just trading wins back and forth. There's always a math to it, and go home math is still fairly unpredictable. So sorry, a little dry. So another great match between these two teams. They really like working together, and apparently this is going to continue, but don't know how or where, but we'll see. Next up, we had, and I'm going to kind of fly through this because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want the show to go too long again. Next up, we had Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe for the TNT Championship. And again, this is where I fell asleep. I don't know what it is. And I don't think it's Kyle Fletcher matches. I think it's just where they are in the show is where the sleep hits me. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Because I like Kyle Fletcher. I actually think he is going to be an AEW World Champion in the future. And his matches always hit. But I don't think it's him. But there's something in those matches that I go to sleep every single time. I actually feel bad about it. I really do. So I mean, sorry. The match itself was good. First, again, one of those gear things, Kyle Fletcher switches it up with, rather than coming out in the all pink like he has been doing, he did this more pink and black look. Um, really channeling the Bret Hart thing. I get nobody has had a signature hold on the pink look or the black and pink look the way that Kyle Fletcher had. And I don't know, it made sense with Bret Hart because Hart pink makes sense. Um, I don't know if Kyle can get it, quote unquote, over the way that, like, when you think pink and black, you think hearts. Really Bret, but hearts in general. Hart Foundation, Neidhart, Bret Hart, Owen Hart, you think hearts. The entire Hart Foundation Cup or Hart Foundation tournament, black and pink or pink. The belts, black and pink. Like, when you think black and pink, you think the hearts. Kyle Fletcher is making, I guess, throwing his name in the ring like, yo, pink is gonna be mine, which is a choice. And like I said, and I don't know why it works. Besides the name aspect of it, maybe it's the style of it. I don't know why it worked so well for Bret. I wonder, can it work like that for Kyle? We'll see. I know it's very random, but the black and pink that he had on for this show, I think was really dope. And so we'll see where it goes from there. But as for the match, great match. The story basically of the match was that Mark Briscoe would not die. So, but eventually it came down to that after a low blow and like a brain bust on the top rope, which he's been doing here lately as a finish. Kyle Fletcher gets the 1-2-3. Moving along. Singles match. I'm reading this. I don't know why I said that part. AEW World Women's Championship. Chris Statlander versus Timeless Toni Storm. Stat has this really dope, almost alien entrance, which is more about. Actually, they both had really interesting entrances. Toni Storm's was an interesting one, as well as Chris Statlander. Tony's was more about, I guess, trying to find herself. The story, it basically, both entrances told the story of what the match is for both of them going into it, which is typically what you want. Great match between those two. The one thing that I will say, and it's not even a complaint, Stat does the Saturday Night Fever, I guess is what they're calling it now. It used to be just whatever night it was, but or maybe it was because it was Saturday night. But the Saturday Night Fever, she usually does it as a driver. This time she did it more like a slam. They're not sure, and not even in the sense of, like, sometimes they do certain things where you can't really tell, where it's like it looks like a driver, but it's more of a slam. And other times it's like it's just a full on slam. She did it twice in this match, and it felt like a slam. Tony could not put Stat away, and that was basically the story there. So after the match, Stat celebrating, Mercedes' music hits. She comes out flanked by the frat house. Now, she's 10 belts Monet at this point because she had just won. Yeah, 10 belts Monet. The frat house comes out carrying all the other titles. She has the TBS championship. She comes out and calls out anybody. Now, this is the thing, because I know when I mentioned last week, I didn't have all the facts. So she's saying, hey, I said last week that she was making an open challenge to anybody, and I said, well, whoever was in play, whoever everybody thought was in play for Homecoming or Title Tuesday in Daly's place, probably will be the person that she faces tonight or there at WrestleDream. What I didn't know was that what she actually said was any champion. And that should have opened that up to who it would be. Because It wouldn't have been somebody from some indie, right? It would have had to been a fairly notable champion. And who's the one notable champion in AEW who could afford that loss? Out comes Mina Shirakawa, who is the interim ROH Women's Television Champion, holding that title while Red Velvet is injured. There will be a unification match at some point when Red Velvet comes back. Depending on where we are in the story, Red Velvet could take her title back or could unify the titles. Because I don't think she comes back, which will be huge, first of all. But if we do this in the midst of Mercedes' slide, I think that would be a good look for her. Because it's going to be great for... The thing that could happen here is that Mercedes puts over 12 women in a row. At least. And I know I said 12, I'll get to that in a minute. But the thing that could happen here is Mercedes could put over a bunch of women all at once. And all of this Mercedes Hogan talk and all of this, I realize this, and I'll get to that in a minute as well. Why? But every time Mercedes wins a title, I love it even more because it pisses off you idiots who have so much trash to talk about Mercedes because she's doing this. As if she's the one saying, well, hey, if I come in, I got to win the title. Highly doubt that's the case. You know why people put their title on Mercedes? Because Mercedes is money. Mercedes is money. Money, you get it? Mercedes is money. Okay? To have Mercedes carrying your belt on national TV is an indie's dream. She just won like the Body Slam, whatever. I don't know what it is. I'm perfectly honest with you. But she just won like whatever title that was. And it's like, you never heard of this indie company before that she now has a title for. But guess what? I might look into it now. And you know who else I'll look at? And then when she loses it, I'll look into the part. This is the opportunity for a bunch of companies to build up the person they want to be their women's star, to beat the biggest, and I will say it, the biggest, I'll even say it like this, the biggest non-WWE wrestler, female women's wrestler in the world, the biggest name. You have a chance to have your next up and coming, the person you want to push, beat Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks, whose main event at WrestleMania, has held countless championships. Obviously, she's holding most of them now, and you can count those. But like, why wouldn't a company want to put their title on Mercedes? It is instant exposure. Sure, we'll play into the gimmick for however long you want to play into the gimmick. Because now the thing that you have to sell, don't get me wrong. Now, it's even more different. Because I was going to make like the Raw or the WWE comparison. So like when a part-timer has the title and they're never around, like Brock in that period of time where like he was the champ, but he was never there. And they pretty much pushed the Intercontinental Championship to like the main championship. Same thing kind of with Roman, a little bit to an extent, not as much. Definitely was that with Brock. But it's a little different even on the indies because you're not on TV every week or not on national TV every week. So it's not even the same in that regard. So the thing that you're selling to as an indie, sure, you don't have your title. Mercedes has your championship, and she's probably not going to pop up anytime soon because the asking price is exorbitant. So what are you selling in the meantime? You're selling the person who's going to eventually face and beat Mercedes. It's as good as being that person, putting your fighting to get to that position is just as big as fighting to become the champion right now. It again, and I'm not a booker. I don't claim to be like a booker of any sort. It's just common sense to me that this makes perfectly good sense. The idea that people think that this is Mercedes and her creative, I highly doubt that that's the case. Highly doubt it. That's my Mercedes Monet rant. No Mercedes Monet slander will be tolerated here. Saying all that to say, of course she beat Mina. Actually, I knew it, but I kind of wasn't sure. I don't know why. I didn't think Mina was going to be the one, but there was a certain point in the match that I was like, yo, is this really going to happen? Sold me a bit, sold me. They got me. They got me. Of course, Mercedes wins. She's now 11 belts, Monet. So she's celebrating. Out comes Stat. And Stat drops her ass. And she was like, you interrupt me, I interrupt you back. Drop. Love to see it. Love to see it. Next up, we had the tag team match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Bro Dito versus the Don Callis family. The people in this match, you already know what I'm going to say. Great match. It was. They were really selling Bandito's shoulder injury. Oddly enough, the Okada Takeshita issue, I don't want to call it a rivalry just yet, but the tension between them didn't really come up throughout the match. It every so often, but like for them to not be able to stand each other, they actually work really well together. There are a lot of like subtle things. There were a lot of other things in this match that like, other than just being a great match, point blank, and everybody just working gangbusters. I feel like there was, so throughout the match, obviously Bandito's hurt. Brody keeps yelling at Bandito, just keep fighting, never stop fighting, just keep fighting. And first, this could be a stretch, but knowing how Brody is highly on the F Ice train. I feel like him constantly saying that and yelling that had a bit of a more a bit more meta reasoning. I think it was more like he's yelling that to Bandito, but yelling it, I guess, to everyone to say, keep fighting, don't stop fighting. That obviously is the message of the day. Again, will not get, I won't right now get political at all, but if you know, you know, right? Finish kind of comes where Okada is going for the Rainmaker and Bandito ducks, and Okada takes out Takeshita with the Rainmaker, which leads to Bandito hitting the 21 plex, getting the win. A one-armed 21 plex and getting the win. World Heavyweight Championship match, we got Hangman Adam Page versus Samoa Joe. Meat on meat match. Takes 3 buckshot lariats to put Joe down. Hangman gets the win. The thing here is what happened after the match. So after the match, the ops turn on Hangman and lay him out. We have heel ops. And interesting, to say the least. But We know what the thing here is. The thing we all came for. The thing we were all terrified to see. Darby Allin versus Jon Moxley in an I Quit match. Now, it's been about a week now. So I'm sure you've all heard this and seen this. That this match, not to say that it didn't deliver, but like people were expecting more. People were expecting it to be a lot more violent, to go a lot more extreme. We've also heard there's one light, which means the other one's going right behind it. We've also heard that the reason for this is the Missouri State Commission. The Missouri State Commission would not let them get away with as much as they would have liked to get away with. In the match, and it's only so far they would let them go. That being said, this match, it was still kind of like at points, but it wasn't as as you would have liked. There was this point with these skewers where first we did the ears, now we're going underneath fingernails. Ugh. Again, me. That's actually where I woke up. I woke up as that was getting ready to happen. I told you I fell asleep on the main event. Well, on the title match. So I wake up to Mox stomping on Darby's hand and putting skewers underneath his fingernails, which I woke up instantly. No, I'm going back to sleep. No, refuse. Lots of other stuff going on here. They tried to drown him in an aquarium. He death ridered him through or paradigm shifted him, whatever, through a stack of tables. And Claudio threw him from the ring to the announce desk. It was a lot. There was a taser involved. There were lashes with a leather belt. It was a lot. And it's looking bad for young Darbs. And then the lights go out. And when they come back on, who's there but Old Man Sting? I've said I hate the fact that we never got Old Man Sting in the ring. This is the first television appearance of Old Man Sting, and I love it. And probably the last one, period, because he's not going to be wearing the paint after this year. This is the last year that he's wearing the paint. So I'm not even sure how that's going to look going forward. Does it just show up as just show like sunglasses on or something with the beard and the white hair, maybe? That could be a cool look. That main event mafia look, essentially, but not as much. Because the paint isn't necessary at this point. Like it's cool, and we're getting them with like full beard and it's whatever. That's cool. That's cool. I'm glad we got that glimpse of Old Man Sting. I think going forward, I think he does show up here and there again. Like I'm pretty sure we can probably count on a 1 or 2 appearance a year for Sting for like Darby situations, maybe. Maybe. Because after that, he made a comment about, I'll be here whenever Darby. I'm not opposed to showing up if Darby needs me. Sure, it'll be another situation where where he'll show up. But Sting shows up. Takes out Mox. Hands Darby the bat. Gets Marina up out of there. Takes out the rest of the Death Riders. Hands Darby the bat. Gets Marina up out of there. Darby whacks Mox with the bat a couple times. Scorpion Deathlock. Mox quits. Strange ending. But okay. Cool. Whatever. I'm not complaining too much. It wasn't what I thought. Like I was on. It's going to take something psychological as opposed to something physical. Not really what happened. However, there's a story here, and the story continued on Dynamite. So let's move to Dynamite because we're out of time. Actually, no, we're not. I can go as long as I want to go, but I don't want to go that long because it's a Saturday. You know, you got to get your day started. So let's move on to Dynamite. I don't really have a lot of complaints about Dynamite. I will say something that I've heard said and I noticed, and it's true. It feels like a lot of the stuff that we felt probably could have ended at WrestleDream is going to continue going forward, and some of it doesn't need to. So that's a little strange, but it's fine. It's fine. Um, Hangman, of course, basically says he's going to ruin Joe's life when he catches him. And we open with the Ops versus the Hurt Syndicate for those Trios Tag Team Trios Championship, or the Trios Tag Team Championship. Trios Championship, let's say that. And the Ops win after the distraction from Ricochet, which means that the Hurt Syndicate demand feud is not over, which again, I thought it was. Don't know where you go from here. Not really sure what happens next there. We've done, I get, even if we were going to say like they were uh what are they 2-1? I don't know. First thing, they were 2-1. Well, they were tied because the man won the first 6-man. The Hurt Syndicate won the street fight, and then the Hurt Syndicate won the third Tornadoes match. The third match, the Tornado tag. So we got the rubber match. So we're gonna keep going, I guess. I don't know. Ops retain, of course. They cut this heel promo, basically solidifying themselves as heels now, as if we didn't notice what was. I figure. At Full Gear, Mercedes, after the attack from Stat, challenged Stat to a match at Full Gear. Stat accepts here. Moving forward. Darby cut a promo basically saying he's willing to die for AEW, and as long as the Death Riders are around, Darby isn't far behind. So next we have this 4-way women's tag match with Megan Bayne and Penelope Ford, Jamie Hayter and Amanada, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, and Sky Blue and Julia Hart. Jamie Hayter and Amanada win. This match was so all 4 of these teams are going to be in the women's tag tournament. The match was for whoever won the match could determine who they faced for the tag team championships. So of course, Hayter and Amanada win. They choose Sky Blue and Julia Hart, so we know that match is going to happen in the first round. So next up, we got. I'll do the brackets. I'll do the brackets at the end because the rest of the show kind of affects the brackets a little bit. So we have the Bucks trying to get another money match from Tony Khan. Tony makes an appearance. He says, "Well, yo, I'll put up $400K in an 8-man match, and it'll be Jet Speed and Jurassic Express versus the Bucks and these guys." And out of Tony's office comes FTR. Now we know the FTR in the Bucks history. I don't think it won't be the first time they actually tag together in an 8-man match. But I don't know if they've ever won in those anytime they have. So that's going to be interesting as well. I want to say, matter of fact, I want to say it was All Out maybe either last year or the year before that they all teamed together. Maybe the year before. I'm not really sure. One of those 2 years. When they were both close to babyface, so I guess it had to have been 23. Sounds right. It definitely sounds right. Yeah, in fact, I know it's right because they faced each other at All Out and they tagged together at All In. So yeah. So continuing along, and I know the spoilers, but they're facing that match will happen on Collision tonight. So go figure. So Mercedes Moné has a celebration for her 12th belt because between WrestleDream and Dynamite, Mercedes won another title. That's right, 12 belts, Moné. And if you hate it, go suck on a lemon because I love it. So she comes out with all her titles, or she doesn't. Because Renee's in the ring, there's a cake in the ring, and rather than Moné, we get Mini Moné. So Mini Moné is just living it up in the ring. But then out comes the real Ulta Moné. Ulta Moné. And she gets in the ring and she chastises Mini Moné and she chastises Harley. And she slams the puppet's face into the cake. So there's a cake. Of course, somebody's face is going into the cake. Anytime there's a cake in wrestling, somebody's face is going into the cake. It never fails. So she goes to pull Harley from under the table. But guess who else is under the table? Stat. And Stat electric chairs her into the cake, face first into the cake, and then slams her through the table. And we have ourselves a feud, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, we have Kyle O'Reilly versus Jon Moxley. Now, common convention just tells you that this is just another one of those Mox matches where he wins. But earlier in the night, there was a promo where Mox seems to be displaying a tad bit of doubt that he said I quit. And that continues here. They're having, they're going at it, doing the typical. Is exactly what you would expect it to be between Kyle O'Reilly and Mox in a competitive match. And Kyle gets him in this ankle lock, and Mox is in it. He can't get out. And he just nails the referee and gets the DQ. And Kyle O'Reilly wins by DQ. And now we're dealing the story of Mox and this crisis of confidence. And rather than quit, rather than say, there's now panic when he's in these situations of pain and he needs to get out. So much so that he risked losing the match by DQ. This is, I like where this is going. I'm wondering where this is going now. Things are picking up. And that's a level of desperation, insecurity, second guessing, whatever you want to call it, that we don't see. There's so many comparisons to the bloodline with the Death Riders. This is a quirk we don't see in Roman. Roman is ultimate confidence, ultimate, I'm always on top, I'm always whatever. And even when it fails him, he still is, he's Roman. To have Mox question himself to that degree, I like where this is going. I like where it's going. So the conglomeration comes out, the Death Riders come out, we got a brawl, which works out because the next match up is Orange Cassidy, Mark Briscoe, Roddy Strong, conglomeration, and Roddy versus the conglomerate versus the Death Riders. And the conglomeration wins, because of course, because Death Riders won on WrestleDream. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So of course, Pac comes out, takes Mark Briscoe, out comes Ishii. Then out comes Marina Shafir. It's more brawling. Darby comes out. Death Riders retreat. And we're moving. So apparently we're still doing Darby Death Rider stuff. Because he said that again, so that's still continuing. So go figure. So backstage, Monet, for some reason, still covered in cake, instead of going to wipe or take a shower or get out of, I don't know. Athena comes out and says, hey, well, let's make some history. I'm the longest reigning ROH Women's Champion. You're the longest reigning TBS Champion and 12 belts Monet. How about we make a little more history and win these, be the first AEW Women's Tag Team Championships? Then Mercedes is like, I like the sound of that. Let's do it. Sweet. I think this is a good time to do the bracket. So for the women's tag team brackets, we have in the first round, of course, we mentioned Queen Aminata and Jamie Hayter versus the Sisters of Sin, Julia Hart and Sky Blue. We have on that same side, we have Willow Nightingale and Harley Cameron will be taking on Mercedes Monet, and Athena. On the other side of the bracket, we have Windsor and Rio will be taking on Toni Storm and Mina Shirakawa, which I mentioned last week. Toni would probably lose. Toni was more than likely going to lose the stat, and going forward, she's probably going to be in the tag team tournament. More than likely with either Alex Windsor, or Mina Shirakawa. And there was a backstage moment after both of them lost their title matches at WrestleDream. They're both looking despondent, and Tony's like, we lost everything, and Mina's like, no, we still have each other. And I knew then, I'm like, yeah, that's going to be the team. It's not going to be Alex Windsor because we hadn't done that in a while. It's going to be Toni Storm and Mina. And we have Megan Bain and Penelope Ford versus Tajay. So, looking at this bracket, it really looks like we're going Mercedes Monet and Athena versus Toni and Mina in the finals, which is great. There's any of these teams really could, except for maybe Alex Windsor and Rio, they shouldn't. But any of those other teams, and maybe I'm not in Jamie Hayter either, but any of those other teams absolutely deserve to be in the rank in the first, the first main finals for that. Sisters of Sin have been doing their thing for a little over a year or more now. Tajay, absolutely. I just saw something before I started recording where they've been tagging for a long time. Like, there's a match in another tournament for the Women's Tag Team Cup. And in that tournament was like Brandy Rhodes and I think it was Allie as the Nightmare Sisters or something like that. Brandy alone, they've been gone since 22. Which sounds crazy that it's been that long, but it has. Since 22. Cody's main evented 3 WrestleManias since then, as well as performing at another. So he's gone through 4 Manias. And that's how long Tajay has been teaming together in AEW. So, if anybody deserves it, I'll put them on there. They're probably the longest and most established team in AEW. Megan Bain and Penelope Ford, I can see them getting it. Willow and Harley, fairly new, but I wouldn't hate it. Monet and Athena, obviously not even a real team. But it makes sense that both champions in there. But I wouldn't want them with their champ for the same reasons that I think Mercedes will not win the women's championship in AEW. Is the same reason I don't think they should put these on them either. Because her gimmick is collecting belts. Either of those 2 belts in AEW are way too important to just be another belt that she captures. So I don't see her winning these belts, and I don't see her winning the AEW Women's Championship at Full Gear. She will win both probably at some point, but not while she's 12 belts, Monet. The any other belt she wins will not be in AEW. Book that. Book me saying it, because I mean it. Let me try something. I don't know if that does anything, but we're just trying to see. I think the space is there for Tony and Mina to be the ones who take the whole thing, unless you want to go Cinderella story and put it on Tajay. That would be a miracle run. If they beat Penelope Ford and Megan Bayne in the first round, with Megan Bayne being who and what she is, and then they beat Tony and Mina in the second round, with Tony being Tony and Mina being Mina. And in the finals, because I can't imagine there being anybody other than Monet and Athena, Mercedes and Athena, the two longest reigning women's champions. Miracle run if it were Tajay. But great way to establish them as tag team champions. But if it's anybody other than Mercedes and Athena versus Tony and Mina, I would be shocked. So, go figure. Moving along. Back to Dynamite. Kyle Fletcher cuts the promo, basically saying, I'm done with Mark Briscoe. And out comes Mark Briscoe. Mark Briscoe says, hey, I just need one more shot. And Don Callis and Kyle Fletcher are like, nah, we straight on you, buddy. Which means that we're getting another Mark Briscoe, Kyle Fletcher match. And I still don't think that Mark Briscoe will beat Kyle Fletcher. For the same reason that I said he wouldn't beat him at WrestleDream. So I don't know why. Again, another one of those things that's continuing, and I don't really know why. But it is. So that's cool. That's cool. I'm trying to decide, should I turn this off? Because now it's giving me weird glare on my forehead, because so much of my forehead is showing, because as you see, you see me. You see me. Birthday braids in effect. You see me. Maybe I should turn that off. Let's see. Yeah. Because that glare was giving me a lot of five head there. Anyway, main event of Dynamite. Okada versus Bandito. What else could this be but amazing? The finish was great. Bandito hit the 21-plex at least once in this match, maybe twice, but at least once. But he went for it again. Okada was just far enough away from the ropes to where when he goes to do the flip over, Bandito doesn't hit the ropes. He just lands on his feet, which allows Okada to hit Bandito with the Rainmaker. Just a small bit of ringside, like I've never seen anything like that as a finish before. Like, amazing, fantastic, amazing and fantastic. And that's how the show went. The show went off the air with Kenosuke Takeshita making his way out. The rest of the Don Callis family is there. Takeshita's on his way out. He's upset because Okada gave him the Rainmaker at WrestleDream and laughed about it. Sidebar about Okada. I don't know if I've said this before here, but I've thought about it. There was a period of time where people were like, oh, they're wasting Okada in AEW. He's got this Continental Championship and he's not doing anything and he's not having really great matches and yada, yada, yada. I think I have said this here, but post Unified Championship Okada ain't playing. I'd never gotten into like Okada in New Japan because obviously I knew of him, but I didn't get the hype. I watched like the Kenny matches, And I've seen him here and there, and I know he put on good matches, but I wasn't like blown away. But I kind of kept up with it a little bit, you know what I mean? And his AEW run, I wasn't on the bandwagon of people who were like they're wasting Okada and yada yada. But I was like, he feels bored. He seems like not interested. And I know some of that's just his facial expressions, but it didn't feel like he had competition. Now, whatever I thought back then, he is not the same. There is another gear, and he has found it, and he is serving the ass. Best way I can say that. Pause. So, shout out to, hey, they're killing it, man. So all that being said, that's where we are now. Going into, I guess now we're on the build to Full Gear. Full Gear isn't until the 23rd of November, if I'm not mistaken. Something around that time. Closer to the end of the month. So we got about a month to build that up. We also have Blood and Guts coming up in a few weeks, and that hadn't been mentioned again. Well, the event being Blood and Guts has been mentioned, but the actual teams have not. I'm assuming that whatever happens in this first round match between Amanada and Hayter and the Sisters of Sin is going to directly lead into Blood and Guts, which is also why I feel like neither of those teams is going to the finals. They'll probably have something to do with them eliminating each other. And truth be told, even as I say that, I'm looking at a lot of people in this tournament. Most of the people in this tournament are the people who I figure would be in Blood and Guts. Amanada, Hayter, Ty J, more than likely. Willow or Willow and Harley, or Willow, some combination of that. And then the Sisters of Sin, Bane and Ford, Megan Bane, Divine Vanity. I didn't say it. Divine Vanity. Yeah, all of them are going. I think all of them are going to be in Blood and Guts. So I feel like this tournament is going to. It doesn't say when the finals are going to be, but I figure that the finals are going to be at Full Gear, maybe, or maybe the Thanksgiving show in Nashville that I hopefully will be at this time for real. I'm not really sure which. I'm not really sure which way that's going to go. But again, I don't think Monet and Athena and Tony and Mina are going to be in Blood and Guts necessarily. So now I'm curious of how the brackets and how the tournament is going to play out as it pertains to Blood and Guts. Will the tournament be going on while Blood and like are they going to? Is there going to be cross section? I don't know. It almost has to be, right? So we'll see. We'll see what happens there. I'm looking that to me feels like the news of the week is that we got the brackets to the women's tag team championship tournament, and how that pertains to Blood and Guts. The women take the big story for me this week. But all in all, WrestleDream, it was a good show. It just felt long. I think, like I said, had it started earlier, probably wouldn't feel that way. The later those shows go, it's the only plus is that it was late on a Saturday, and that's again, we always got the perfect thing there. Saturday afternoon shows, Saturday night, either Saturday night but not that long, or Saturday afternoon through the night, something like that is I think the sweet spot. But like that Sunday, if it had been Sunday, it'd have been unwatchable. Probably not really, but those were the struggle shows, especially when you're watching at home by yourself. where I can sit down or lay down and go to sleep because I'm old. Speaking of old, again, my birthday is Monday. Happy birthday to me. I'll leave like a Cash App link or my wish list or something like that if anybody were so inclined. But it's not a big deal. I'm just throwing it out there to be throwing it out there. Um, Again, thank you for tuning in. I'm not going to do a long outro this time. I don't think I have to. Just make sure you like, share, and subscribe. There are some things I want to bring up. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Share, subscribe. Make sure you leave a comment, thoughts, any anything, basically. Love to hear from you all. Tell me what you thought about Dynamite. Tell me what you thought about WrestleDream. Where you think we're going with the women's tag team tournament? What do you think about the Mox, Death Riders, Darby situation, Mox's crisis of confidence? Or if you just want to wish me a happy birthday, hey, I'm cool with that too. Make sure you either leave me a message, DM me, or just leave a comment. Either way, cool with that either way. Thanks so much for tuning in. We're looking forward to doing a lot more things here. Thanks for tuning in while my lights went out because I forgot to charge them up. Looking into doing some collaborative work. I've been speaking with a couple other creators here on Substack about that. Also, again, don't as I mentioned Substack. Make sure you check it out. Check out this podcast anywhere you can find it. It's also not anywhere, but it's also here on Substack, on YouTube, and on Spotify. So make sure you go check it out on Spotify. You can just look for Black Phoenix Network or Talmbout Rasslin, and it should be there. Also, like I said, also on YouTube as well. The same thing, Black Phoenix. I don't think it's Black Phoenix Network. It's Black Phoenix brand, but Talmbout Wrestling should bring you right to it. So make sure you check me out there. Like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a rating. Anything you can do to engage with this podcast will be greatly appreciated because that's the only way we're going to grow is with your engagement. So thank you so much for being a part of the Black Phoenix Network. Thank you so much for being a part of the Black Phoenix Nation. I think that's what I should call you guys, the Black Phoenix Nation. Or my little ashes. I don't know. That sounds kind of disrespectful. I don't know. But thank you so much again. It's another Friday. I'm going to get out you guys' way. Enjoy your Friday. Happy birthday to me. And happy birthday to all my Scorpios out there until I see you next week. Happy Halloween, because it'll be the day after Halloween. It'll be the 1st of November. Happy Halloween to everyone. I'm not going to say the other thing I was going to say there, but save the boobies. Save the boobies. Support breast cancer research. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. And as I always say, we are